Hello, everyone. Happiness coach here. I help you to change your habits so you can be a healthy, happy human. And today we're going to be talking about burnout. Have you had it? Do you know someone else who's got it? I've got a fantastic guest, Jen Wilson. Jen is a holistic health coach, and she's going to be talking about burnout because she's experienced it, haven't you, Jen?
I have, not once, but twice.
Absolutely. So, how about you just go ahead and tell us what we can do?
Yeah, no problem. So I have a number of habits we can bring into our day every day that can help us to avoid burnout. And the first one that I always talk to everyone about is awareness. And it's being aware of how you feel, what you're thinking, and just like really tuning into your body because your body is always sending you messages, whether it's aches and pains, headaches, stomach problems, how you're behaving, not being able to concentrate, not being able to make decisions, feeling anxious. All there's so many things, and we can dismiss them as being down to something else. So we think, oh, well, that's because of that, and that's because of that. So we just kind of push it to one side and ignore it. But I just think the most amazing habit you could have a day is like a daily check-in with yourself, just being really aware of how you're feeling. Um, Whether it's like a body scan to see, like, have I got a headache? Am I feeling tense? How's my tummy? There's just so many things. Or even like making a note of, say, like something happens through the day and you react in a negative way, making a note of what that thing was and like what happened and who was involved, what was said, how did it make you feel? Because that also really helps you build awareness around what your stress triggers are. Um,
Brilliant. Yeah, I
if
mean,
you're
with that,
going
with
to say, go on.
to interrupt you. There's a
Oh,
slight
it's
delay.
okay.
I was going to ask about that, that sort of check in with yourself. Is that something you'd recommend first thing in the morning then? Or is there a
I
particular,
would say any time during the day. I mean, first thing in the morning is a great time because it would obviously give you time to start your day slightly calmer than jumping straight out of bed and into action. But I think it should be done at various times through the day because as the day gets going and things are thrown at you left, right, and centre, and all these different things are going on, how you feel during the day can change. And then obviously, if you're exposed to something specific, like particularly stressful during that day, that's going to have an even bigger impact, isn't it, on how you're feeling? So it's just that constant awareness because if you're aware, like guess what, you can do something about it and you can start to make some changes.
yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like it'd be good to to carry a notebook.
Yeah, I think
Take
that's really
down.
helpful. Yeah,
But
yeah,
also,
being
how do
aware.
you interrupt? Like obviously this is a this will be a new habit for some people. They've never thought about becoming aware and doing a body scan and checking in. So I'm just wondering if there's an easy strategy to remember to do it, like maybe having a reminder on the phone that goes off, a little notification that comes up once an hour or something like that, that kind of jogs our memory, interrupts something so we can remember to do it. I mean, how did you start remembering to do it?
Yeah. Um, I think mine was I spent years just burying everything, dismissing it as being down to something else. And you hit one burnout and then you pick yourself up and you think you've got it okay. And then you hit your second burnout. And then that's kind of the wake up call to really tune in and not ignore how you're feeling. So I didn't have a reminder as such. I was just super aware of, even when the second burnout hit, I was more aware than the first time because I knew what the signs and symptoms were. So there's one answer is knowing what all the signs and symptoms are of stress and maybe just doing, I have like a little checklist where you can go through and see how many of the signs and symptoms you've got because that's the first kind of awareness, like, all right. And then once you're aware of what those things are, you can then become, I'm saying aware quite a lot, and I aware during each day if your headache's got worse or if your tummy's got tighter or if you're feeling a certain way more. But I definitely think like setting a timer, I've been using timers lately to remind me to do all kinds of things because you can get busy with your day and the day's just gone in the blink of an eye, isn't it? So yeah, maybe like once or twice a day, setting something
Yeah.
halfway through the day. And I guess at the end of the day is a really good time as well, because that's a time just to kind of stop and reflect and think, right, I shouldn't be ending the day feeling like this.
Yeah, because some people will obviously have experienced burnout and know some of the symptoms, and there'll be other people that are watching who may be susceptible to burnout in the future that actually could avoid that by some of these habits.
Yeah. And I didn't know what the symptoms of stress were. I stumbled accidentally across an article in a magazine. I'd been what I thought was really unwell for a really long time, but I didn't know what was wrong. And I couldn't like pinpoint something to take to my doctor. So I kind of just got on with it as we do. And I just stumbled across this magazine article on stress, and it had this like little tick box of all the symptoms, and I had them all. And I was like, oh, I'm stressed. I'm just stressed. And at the time, I was so relieved I didn't have anything else more seriously wrong. I just parked it and carried on, which is also the wrong thing to do, by the way, because that doesn't actually address it.
Absolutely.
But it's that awareness. I didn't know what the signs and symptoms of stress were. So that's something I'm really passionate about educating people on, because if you know, you can do something about it sooner rather than later.
Can you say something about what those signs of stress are then, Jen?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, and you might have a few, you might have all of them. I had them all. Well, I had the ones listed in the magazine anyway. But it can affect how you feel. So you can feel like irritable, sort of angry, impatient, that kind of wound up feeling. You might feel constantly overwhelmed, maybe a bit anxious, nervous. Racing thoughts is a really bad one, that inability to switch off. And then I think like you can lose interest in life. You lose your ability to enjoy things that you once enjoyed. It gets a bit kind of like mundane, going through the motions, a bit detached, robotic kind of feeling. And then physically, things like muscular aches and pains, headaches. I had headaches every day for over 2 years, and the only difference in them was the severity. And I kept thinking, oh, it'll have gone tomorrow, it'll have gone tomorrow. But then I know now that was tension, headache brought on by stress. Things like indigestion, constipation, diarrhea. Again, that was something else I experienced. I had irritable bowel symptom brought on by stress. You can have things like weight gain, weight loss, chest pains, palpitations. And then in terms of like how you function, this is a good one. Like you find it hard to make decisions, you can't concentrate, you can't remember things, you're snapping at people. There's just so many. You might pick up unhealthy habits like smoking more, drinking more, eating more. You can feel restless. And can you see how so many of those could be down to something else?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. But that's a huge array of symptoms, Jen. I haven't suffered burnout, and I had no idea actually that it could include all of those things.
And
So,
that isn't the full list. That's not an exhaustive list. That's just like some of them. And then that when that burnout's coming, that can really be like when you're so exhausted all the time, and no matter how much you rest, how much you sleep, you just can't shift the feeling of exhaustion. That's a real key sign of burnout. And then when you're really uninterested in anything and you've kind of lost that joy in life, that's another really typical sign of burnout. And that detachment, you just feel kind of like detached from, I can't think of a better way to put it, you just feel a bit detached from the world around you. I know for me, people used to talk to me and I could see the mouths move, but couldn't tell you what they'd said. You're just in this kind of just trying to get through your day, really, which can be
wow.
challenging.
So I suppose if you're living on your own, uh, you won't have someone necessarily to go, Are you okay?" or is you seem not right, or to actually kind of have someone to sort of point out that actually something's different. Is there a way that um people who are on their own can get help, not necessarily from an expert like you, but from people around them?
Yeah, and I think as well, even if you have got people around you that point it out, you don't necessarily want to listen, because I had people around me pointing it out and I was just like, oh, shut up. There's nothing wrong with me, because I was in so deep, I actually couldn't see how bad I was. Um, and it was only like the really people really close to me, because what we're also really good at is we're also very good at putting on a front and pretending everything's okay. So apart from sort of like partners, maybe parents, nobody else really knew what was going on. Even my friends like didn't know. um so even if you have got people, it's not necessarily helpful, because you dismiss them, because I think there's part of it, you maybe don't know how bad you are, but there's also that element. I'm going to answer your question, by the way. There's also that element of we don't want to admit because we feel like we're failing and we're not coping, and everybody else around me is getting on fine. Why am I such a failure? And that's a massive thing to own up and say, I'm not coping. But I think if you're on your own, it comes back to just educating yourself. If you're aware of the signs and the symptoms, and if you can just stop long enough, because this is another problem we have when we're stressed, we're so wound up and we're so on the go, we don't give ourselves time. We find it hard to slow down and stop, but it's almost like you need that time just to say, like, hang on, how am I really feeling? And just being really honest with yourself, not
Yeah.
just dismissing it and pushing it to one side.
Yeah, not seeing it as a selfish thing, seeing it actually as something that's essential, particularly if you have a family, because unless you're filling yourself up, that you won't have the reserves to be any use really around the family.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to add, Jen?
On to the first one, onto
Well,
awareness.
no, any of it, or just carry on with the rest of the
Yeah,
habits.
I'll carry on. So the next one is boundaries. What a great habit this is to have every single day, having boundaries in place, whether they're boundaries on your time. It can be boundaries at work, it can be boundaries at home, it can be boundaries between home and work. But basically, the point of a boundary is to let people know what you are and are not available for. It's to let people know how you wish to be treated. And without them, you're available to everything and everyone. And when we do that, it's no wonder that we feel stressed, overwhelmed, and we burn out.
Yeah, good one.
So,
Love it. Boundaries
yeah,
are
we
important.
definitely need boundaries. And within that boundaries as well, like knowing your limitations, you've got to know what your limitations are to set those boundaries, because there's only so much we can do in a day. We all push ourselves to a crazy level, but there's absolutely no need. We have the power to take back control. We just get a bit carried away with it, don't we, sometimes?
Yeah, we need to be reminded, don't we, that we have the power. Okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
three.
Number three is it's kind of a slightly combined one, this one. It's saying no. The ability to say no is a habit that we should have every day, instead of saying yes to everything, because I think we're programmed, most of us. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. Oh, yeah. And then we say yes, and then we're kicking ourselves, or we're feeling resentful because we didn't really want to do that thing. And then, I was going to have some time to myself. Now I can't, because now I'm doing this thing I didn't want to do. Um, it's massive saying no. Saying no to things that you don't want to do frees up time for you to do things that you do want to do. And when you're stressed, it's actually just about freeing up time. When you're headed towards burnout, it's just about giving yourself that breathing space.
I love this actually because I totally agree. No is incredibly powerful. And I think that maybe people say yes to stuff because they want to be liked, they want to fit in. Maybe they're scared that if they say no, something awful will happen, or they don't like conflict. But actually, you're absolutely right. Saying no is incredibly powerful. And then, like you say, you can then have the time to say yes to things that really, really nourish you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not easy saying no, especially when you're so used to saying yes to everybody, because it's everybody's reaction when you start saying no. It's like, whoa, hang on. Said no, and they might not like it, and it might make you feel uncomfortable. But that's one of my favorite sayings, is get comfortable feeling uncomfortable, because if you want things to change for the better for yourself, then you're going to have to feel uncomfortable along the way. I'm not going to beat around the bush on that. There's no getting away from the fact that that's how it feels.
Yeah.
And that saying no thing, when I said there about like feeling like you're doing things you don't want to do, like there's a bit of give and take. Life is life, and we often have to do things we don't want to do, which is actually a message I'm trying to drill into my son at the moment, because we can't just please ourselves constantly. But it's the difference between having a choice. You've got a choice on so many things that you can or can't do. Other things that we do, you just have to get on with it. That's life. We all have to do things we don't want to do, but that can be balanced out by saying no to the things that you really don't have to be doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Habit four.
Yeah. Number four is prioritizing self-care, because we've got to take care of ourselves. There's no two ways about it. And self-care is something that, it's one of those words, isn't it? I think there's so much attached to self-care. Like it's a big extravagant expensive thing like a day at the spa or something. And it really isn't. Self-care is about weaving things into your day every day that give you just a few minutes to yourself, whether it's sitting, having a cuppa quietly for a couple of minutes, whether it's taking yourself for a walk, stopping to breathe for a few seconds. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to cost you money. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. There are so many things you can do in your day to look after yourself that will help you reduce your stress levels.
Oh my goodness, I think if we don't care about ourselves, then life doesn't really work very well. It's essential for health and happiness. And yeah, that's where I'm with
And
it.
we've been programmed to feel like it's guilty, like it's selfish, like it's, I guess, extravagant if you're doing the things that cost money. And it makes no sense. I mean, people always say to me about the guilt part, and how do I not feel guilty? Well, I only have one really simple message for that. And I relate it probably more to my relationship with my son than anything, but I think a lot of the women have got family, haven't they? And to me, I feel more guilty, and I guess not just family, friends as well. I feel more guilty when I don't turn up as the best version of myself, when I'm not present, when I'm not paying attention, when I'm not really listening, when I'm not in the best mood, and I'm just not, possibly not being a very nice person. That makes me feel more guilty than going and doing the thing that helps me to feel better.
Yeah, interesting way of looking at it.
Mm.
And I think guilt is I know that we can experience that, but actually it's such a wasted thing. I mean, because it doesn't make any difference, doesn't change anything, just makes us feel a bit shit, actually.
Yeah, it
Mm,
really does.
yeah.
Nicely summed up. Oh, I love that. Okay, so habit number 5 is about calming the body and mind. So it's doing something every day that does what it says on the tin, calms the body and mind. So for me, and it's very personal to whoever, not everything works for everyone, and it's finding your thing, but things that we can do to calm the mind. I said, like, one of the signs of stress and burnout is that racing mind. Simple things like, journaling, getting stuff out of your head on a piece of paper to clear your head and get rid of all the rubbish. The flip side of that is having lists for everything, so that everything's written down, you're not going to forget anything, and that enables you to switch off. Meditation's another really great option, which I know some people sort of turn the nose up. I know I did when people said to meditate. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that, because you can't sit still when you're stressed. But start with a minute, build up. It's just taking that time to like stop and slow down. And then in terms of the body, it's about movement, because like studies show that moving reduces stress. It helps you feel calmer, and it has other added benefits of improving your sleep, and you feel less tired, and it improves your alertness and concentration, which are all things that are massively impacted when you're stressed. And you'll notice I said movement, not exercise, because exercise straight away puts people off. It's just about moving your body, whether you do some stretching, whether you go for a walk, maybe you do go for a run, maybe you do the exercise class, but it's not restricted to, just exercise in its sense. It's just moving your body in some way. So whatever things you can find that help you just to slow down, take some breaths, calm the mind, get the body moving every day makes a massive difference. It really does.
It's so essential. It's so
Yeah.
essential that we move, isn't it, daily?
Yeah. And I'd just like to say within that, everything that you do, it's about finding what works for you. There's no right or wrong. There's no you must do this, you must do that. I've mentioned there things that I do. That doesn't mean you have to do them, but it's finding, and it's about trial and error. If you try something and it didn't work or you didn't like it, like, don't beat yourself up. Just let it go. Try something else. And if
Yeah.
that doesn't work, just keep going, because once you've found what works for you, you're more likely to continue doing it. And just to share, years ago, I was advised to go to yoga when I was really stressed. So yoga helps you relax. I'm like, yeah, I'll go to yoga. And I got to the yoga class, and it's like, is it time to go yet? Is it time to go? I couldn't relax. I didn't want to be there. It dragged on. I was just constantly clock watching, and it wasn't right for me. At the time, I was like, oh, well, what's wrong with me? Why didn't that work? Everybody says it's wonderful. But now, years on, what I realized, it wasn't right for me then. It is now. I do yoga every day, but at that time, it wasn't right for me. And I wish I could have just accepted that and then tried something else. Because what I actually did at the time was I just thought, well, I'm not doing anything else because I clearly can't do anything, which meant I struggled for quite a bit longer. So just
Yeah.
be open that it might not work straight away and it might not be your thing, but just keep trying.
Yeah, because there's so many options, but it's being willing enough to explore them, isn't it, really? And
Absolutely.
find
Yeah,
find the thing that brings you some joy and movement. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so my next one is take regular breaks. Sounds simple, doesn't it? But how many people just go flat out all day without stopping? It's crazy. So scheduling ready like regular breaks into your day, it just gives your body and your brain time to sort of rest and restore. You can regain perspective. Um, I know for me, I used to fight against taking a break because I thought, well, if I'm working, I'm doing and I'm achieving and I can't leave my desk. And I fought against that for a really long time. Now I take regular breaks. If I'm struggling, I get up and leave my desk. I have planned breaks in. It's simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. You have maybe a quick cuppa in the morning. Always have a dedicated lunch break, because that to me is like a non-negotiable. But I know a lot of people don't have lunch breaks still. They eat at the desk or they don't eat at all. Um, Obviously having dedicated breaks enables you to keep hydrated and fueled as well, which is massive for supporting the body. And I'd love to tie into that taking breaks. Get out in nature if you can. Go for a quick 5 or 10 minute walk. It's one of the best things you can do. Studies have shown that being out in nature reduces stress.
And it's
It's one of the
also that change of environment, isn't it? That it's so, so powerful that our environment really, really matters. So if we're in an environment, an office environment, for instance, that's not really conducive to us feeling good, it's so important that we find some time to be in an environment, whatever that is, that does make us feel good and kind of fills us up. So yeah,
yeah.
that change can change our state.
It
Just the
totally
change
does,
in,
and it can clear your head. You actually come back more focused and productive. The amount of times I've sat struggling with something, or even if I'm not struggling, my mood's just not right. I go out and I come back, and it's like you've been reset. So
yeah,
don't underestimate the power of getting outdoors. It's huge. It really is.
brilliant. Is that your six habits?
It is six, but I'd like to add another one on if I'm allowed.
Go on, yeah.
Ask for
Bonus.
help.
Ask
Ask
for
for
help.
help,
Absolutely.
because we're awful at that. We don't like asking for help. We think we should be able to cope. We don't want to put on people. Well, by the time I've asked them, I could have done it myself, or they won't do as good enough job as me, and all this rubbish that we tell ourselves. It's like ask for help, lighten the load. That's the whole point, isn't it? That we're trying to avoid burnout. We're trying to lower our stress levels. So just ask somebody to do something for you and take the pressure off.
I love that you added that one. Thank you so much, Jen.
Oh, you're welcome.
Brilliant. So much in that. I'm going to have a re-listen. So for those of you that have really enjoyed listening to Jen and got something out of it, please, why not subscribe to the video for more ha great habits from people, but also check out her links. I'll be down below, as will mine. And share this with someone who needs it. So thank you so, so much, Jen. Really appreciate what you've said. And thank you everyone else for watching.
Thank you.